Wow, welcome back to the Posscast.
Ah, hello. You've
Yeah,
caught me unawares.
yeah. So, should we just jump into the story?
Sure. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
It's been a bit of normally we record like first thing in the morning, but due to extenuating circumstances, we're recording this late at night. So
The extenuating circumstances being yesterday's release.
yes. So keep an eye out tomorrow for something special. All right, so I'll go
I'm
ahead
gonna
and
keep an eye out for this delicious plate of chicken Alfredo I found floating down the sewer.
I don't know if you should eat sewer Alfredo.
You can't stop me.
That's fair. Anywho, let's go ahead and get started. I have a tale of an overly controlling host that lost his players before we sat down. Posted a month ago by Father of Wolves, and it's got 602 updates.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, in my late high school years, some members of my friend group had started a very casual and light conversation on D&D. It was mostly talking about what we thought of it and if we'd ever get into it. He didn't show up until later in the conversation, but one friend, we'll call him host, was bouncing with joy hearing us talk about D&D. He told us that he was a fan of the game, but never had the opportunity to get to play it. Seeing the opportunity, he pitched to our group if we wanted, he could DM his homebrew and we could be his players. 3 of us agreed,
Boy.
including me, right then and there. And he created a group chat for us where he discussed all his plans and fantasies for the game. Aside from host, we were all completely fresh. Hold on.
Some of my Alfredo noodles cooked together.
Oh, I think the music. Hold on one moment. Sorry about that. There were a bit of technical difficulties with the music, in that it stopped and I had to get it back up.
Oh, are we restarting?
No. I just paused the video or paused the recording and got back up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I learned I could do that.
Good. That means we don't have to splice together 2 files anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, so aside from the host, we were all completely fresh to the game, and we had vague ideas on where to start. He didn't give us anything aside from read the manuals, and I did just that. I got my hands on 5th edition player handbook and printed out some character sheets for the others, for the 2 others. After going through the book, I figured Paladin would be fun and planned to go with the Oath of the Ancients. I told the hostess, and he said I can't because Paladins can't be druids. I pointed out that I got this from the player's handbook. If it's written there, it surely is permitted. His reply is, "This is my game, and I say Paladins can't be druids." And he never elaborated more on that, just refused to allow this character. Friend 2, however, was treated differently. She was a young elven ranger, and she made it very clear that she wore tattoos instead of clothes. This wouldn't have been so bad if she didn't grossly over-sexualize this character on top of that. I tried to voice my discomforts to host, hoping that he could rein her in a bit, but he told me off for being a prude about it. To this day, I still don't understand why he'd allow favoritism. Sorry, I yawned. It doesn't take more than a week, but we had done about all we could as players to prepare for the campaign. Host insists that he was still preparing and we needed to wait a bit longer. He planned to make his own physically drawn maps, towns, NPCs, monsters, and everything that would be his own unique creation. The issue was that he was taking weeks to do this. He was so fixated on his ambition that he didn't see we were losing interest. After about 2 months of waiting on him, we gave him an ultimatum. Either we start next week from that point, or there isn't going to be anyone for his game. He was not happy about this at all, but he made this one single compromise to make it happen. In the group chat, he posted that it would happen. Our characters would be starting at each end of the worlds, and we'd be meeting in a set place after he put us all through our own mini campaigns. Each session would be focused on one character at a time, and he was expecting everyone to just be at his house for every session. No excuse. No one was into this idea, as it meant 2 people would have nothing to do, and we all thought we'd be starting together. He wouldn't take no for an answer, and I asked how long the sessions would be. About 9 hours each. I think in that moment, all of us knew that the kind of hell that we'd be in for if we agreed to this. So my friends and I dropped out right then and there. He started to guilt trip us over the next few days about it, but yeah, it wasn't happening. We had much better things to do than to sit around and use all of our free time for this nightmare. Jesus Christ. That's just
9 hours of doing nothing.
9 hours of forcing everyone else to watch a one-on-one. Can you imagine how much of a nightmare it would have been if, like, at the start of Tapir, I had all of y'all be in different each one in a different country, having no knowledge of the existence of each other, and just trying to guide y'all into the same location? It wouldn't work.
That would suck.
Yeah, it would suck.
You only mildly did that by having Bev and I have a little 2-on-1.
Yeah.
That wasn't recorded.
Yeah, no, it was just
to set up our characters specifically.
Yeah, and figure out how your characters would be introduced. And I had all of your characters, except for Corvus, all be in the same place for the same reason. You know, the storm causing a lot of shit to happen and basically leaving each of y'all shipless.
Yep.
Yeah. And y'all just happen to end up in the same town where Corvus lived. So Corvus is the only one that wasn't there because of a storm. Anywho, yeah, this sounds like an absolute nightmare. I understand how difficult it can be creating a homebrew world. Because, you know, as mentioned, I have a homebrew campaign, which you play in. I did not take 2 months after everyone was ready to get it in a playable state. In fact, I had it in a mostly playable state before I even pitched it to y'all. And then...
As you tend to do.
Yes, as I tend to do. And even after everyone was on board, it was still... after everyone was on board, we still had to... a couple final sessions of my first campaign to wrap up before we could jump into this, which also gave me a bit more time. But yeah, I would not give y'all something that's not in a playable state. Even when I do Theater of the Mind, because I was unable to make maps, I still did have it at least, like I had the stat blocks prepared and stuff, and encounters prepared.
Hey, look, I'll be honest. When it comes to like a map for D&D, I will literally just take like an MS Paint drawing of the environment.
I used to have maps of that quality. I think I showed you some of my old maps at one point, like some of the first maps I did when I started DMing. Like I was freehanding everything with a white background, and just like I didn't even have a basic template for making character icons. I just did whatever, and that caused the character icons to regularly be lopsided. But I got way better at map making. I got better at making character icons, because over the course of the many years I've been DMing, that's a skill that I have developed. Yeah.
You've learned how to get good at doing things by doing things a lot.
Hey, sucking at something is the first step to kind of being okay at something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anywho.
Now I just need to... as much as I understand that, I do need to pound it into my skull so that I can get off my ass and not be scared of being bad at stuff.
Yeah. So, anywho, all that said...
I mean, for some of it, it's also the fear of grievously injuring my body.
Yeah.
When it comes to, like, skateboard.
Okay, now that's a reasonable thing to... Like... Yeah, I can understand that. I've seen some pretty... You remember that one video that was, like, circling of the kid falling off the hat?
Don't mention it. Don't talk about it.
You know exactly which one I was going to talk about.
Don't talk about it.
Yeah, okay. Okay. All I will say is that the kid was disturbingly calm once they they were freaking out at the beginning, but once their friend or brother or whatever ran off to go get their parent, they were like extremely calm, which was kind of disturbing.
It's the adrenaline.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Shock is one hell of a drug. Anywho, the moral of the story is if you're going to pitch a D&D campaign and get everyone ready to play a D&D campaign, make sure that you actually have the campaign, or not just D&D, but any campaign in general, in a playable state. Like for like I have talked about a Star Wars campaign, even though I don't have the stuff ready, I at least have the introduction. I have an idea of like what the introduction...
You have a vague idea of how session 1 will go.
Yeah, like session 1 and 2. I have a vague idea how that will go. I would just need to, make the maps, make the stuff, and also, read the game system.
Yeah.
I have
anyway.
I have what the first quest is going to be. Yeah.
Good.
Anywho, you got a story, don't you?
I do have a story to read out.
Hell yeah.
This one was posted 9 days ago by user Alicio Key with 127 upvotes, titled Player Won't Listen to Others.
Oh joy.
This is still an ongoing thing, but it's pretty much on the cusp of breaking my game, so yeah. To start off, we have a player. We'll name them Brandon, obviously not their real name.
Let's go,
and
Brandon.
He's very passionate about his backstories, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
He just has a terrible case.
Hold on. I do want to specify, I was being completely ironic when I said that. Because, I can say fuck Joe Biden because he's not following through on his policies.
Yeah.
And I'm not a coward. I don't have to dog whistle it. I can just outright say it.
Yeah.
Anywho, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. He just has a terrible case of what some would call the main character syndrome, but he's naive about it. He tries to really make his character interesting and unique, but doesn't cater to whether or not it makes sense. I, as the DM, of course, do step in whether something goes too far or doesn't make sense, and I've done this for our last campaign, but in our recent campaign, it's starting to get worse. For some context, around session 0, everyone sends me their backstories, and I read over Brandon's backstory, and it's several pages. I included a disclaimer for this particular campaign. It is a long-term dungeon, so backstory may not be important, and it'll be hard for it to be included. I just wanted to make sure this was known so the players are known to the players so that they wouldn't feel like I just wanted to make sure this was known to the players so that they don't feel like they would have to give an essay of a backstory, really. And he's playing a sibling character with another player. All good initially, and I give the thumbs up. Problem arises when player is making a habit of continually interrupting others to make notes and imageries of previous scenes that already went by. I.e., if the party were at a bar drinking, 2 scenes later, if the party is now in the town square talking to NPCs, Brandon would randomly interject and be like, "Oh, by the way, he drank deep ale during that scene." And this was particularly frustrating because we have a quiet/shy player who doesn't often get interact much. Okay. Grammar, but okay. But Brandon thought it was a good idea to interrupt during this player's scene. Great.
Was it he doesn't get to interact much? Did you just put the wrong inflection when reading it?
No, he's missing a letter.
Oh.
Who doesn't often get to interact much.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't often get to interact much. But Brandon thought it was a good idea to interrupt during this player's scene. Great.
Ew.
While annoying, no real lines have been crossed until he decides to edit his backstory mid-campaign without letting anyone else know. His character is a half-orc, but decides to include that during his young age, his character is a human, but only grew his half-orc features until late adulthood, and changed the entirety of his character's upbringing around that transition. When the other player, who was playing his character's sibling, noticed this and took issue with it, Brandon tried to gaslight them into thinking it was always there, and that I approved it.
Gross.
Now, I'm no biology master, but I don't think that's how growing up as a half-orc works. I get told the problem, and I sort it out with him in DMs, in terms of, if you're born a half-orc, you'll look like a half-orc. And at most, he tried to weasel his way into it by saying that maybe he had recessive features that made him look mostly human. But I said, even if his orcish features are recessive, he'll still look like a half-orc. And with that, we seemingly reached a compromise of sorts, and it was all sorted out. After the 3rd session, however, in a VC that I wasn't part of, he talks about his character's upbringing as a human/transition into a half-orc, and as if it's a decided thing. When other players, who are hearing this for the first time, express concern and don't believe that's how it works, Brandon drops, "Oh, DM's fine with this, we talked about it." As you'd expect,
like a liar.
And as you'd expect, I get a mob of messages in the morning. Player who played the sibling character has already left the campaign because of Brandon's lack of ability to cooperate with others, and the remaining players are also threatening to leave if they think this is how, and I quote, or if this is how I, and I quote, allow things to run. I had to explain to them the whole situation above, that it's not what we agreed on, and he's doing things behind my back at this point, but it's not enough for them. So yeah, fun campaign that I spent months prepping for is down the drain, and I'm already in the process of calling it quits, since the players have stated that all of this have ruined the campaign for them. Like I said in the first line, this is still, quote, ongoing in a sense, or while this is still ongoing in a sense, the campaign's pretty much done. Now there is an update from the OP.
Oh boy, can I guess what happens before we read the update? Or at least what
Sure.
I hope happens? I hope that he just flat out kicks Brandon out. Just kick him out because he's shown that he is not willing to cooperate, period, and is, you know, lying about the DM, making the DM look bad. And I would hope that by kicking the problem player, the other players give it another chance. That's what I hope. That's what in a just world would happen.
Well, doing a little bit of reading forward, I can tell you that one of those things certainly happened.
You probably kicked the player.
Update. Thanks to many of you for commenting and giving what I needed to do straight to me. I will not great at confrontation, but with the urgency that all of you gave me, I put together a message to Brandon. I tried to be light about it as much as possible since he's still young to D&D, and I'd hate for this experience for him to stop playing D&D altogether, while still giving him room to grow in what he did wrong. I told him what he did was wrong, i.e. gaslighting the player that played his character's siblings, lying behind my back about what I really said, and work to work better on communication with other players if he's gonna be changing aspects of his backstory mid-campaign. Especially if that backstory's tied in with other players' characters, and hoped to be on somewhat of an okay basis with him despite kicking him. Unfortunately, he didn't take it too well. He tried to argue that the player who played his character's sibling shouldn't have made a big deal about it. I tried to reiterate that if his backstory involves other players' characters, it is. But then he gave off paragraphs of cursing, cussing me out, and about how D&D should be a place for escapism, and he shouldn't have to worry about any of all. I can send logs if people are curious.
Oh, I am so curious.
At that point, I promptly kicked, unfriended, and blocked him on every possible platform, and recommended my friends and players to do the same as well. Problem is, we do know him IRL, so hopefully it won't escalate any further.
Oh, please tell me OP posted some of the logs.
I'm looking through.
Fingers crossed. So while you're looking through that, I do want to say there are certain races where magical puberty is a thing that you can have in your backstory.
There is like a race of goblin.
Oh. I was going to go with Genasi. Because, you know...
I think they're called the Veridans? Or Verdant? Those Fey-ish goblins that got introduced in Acquisitions.
Huh.
Up until around sometime around or before adulthood, they just look like normal goblins. But then they get really tall and get psionic powers.
Oh yeah, I know the one you're talking about. I was thinking, my mind immediately went to the Genasi, which look human up until between
or whatever
puberty.
Other race.
Yeah, they look like whatever race their non-elemental parent is, or their non-elemental blood is, because it could be that maybe their great-great-grandparent was an elemental. Like, it doesn't have to be their parent specifically was an elemental.
Yeah.
But anywho,
great-great-grandpappy.
Yeah, they look like whatever race their parent is, and what flows to their blood. Up until between puberty, it's usually after puberty, but before adulthood. But sometimes it can be shortly after adulthood that they awaken their elemental powers, and they go through essentially a second puberty, which is magical in nature.
Yeah.
So.
Looking at the comment section, the newest comment was made 7 days ago. So no update on him yet. I'm getting a phone call from my dad. Hold on.
So, yeah.
Sorry, I got a phone call. Oh yeah, I was looking through the comments. The newest one's from 7 days ago, and it does start with "Let's go, Brandon." Let's go, Brandon. Straight out of this campaign.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
No logs yet.
moral of the story is
The main character.
do try to recognize
the impact.
red flags.
Yes, red flags. And also, don't gaslight your players and don't lie about what your DM said, because that is such an easy lie to get. Like, you can't just say, "Oh, the DM is cool with this," because they're going to check with the DM.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they're not just gonna take your word for it. Like, that it's such a dumb lie.
Look, you might think it, but they're not that dumb.
Yeah, and also, the DM would definitely notice if you continued doing the thing they explicitly said not to do.
Like, let's be fair. They're D&D players. They're probably a little dumb, but they're not that dumb.
Yeah, like if I went to Chalkby and I was like, hey, since Margaret is part Fae, could she have fairy wings? And Chalkby was like, no. Like, I wouldn't be able to just, like, add fairy wings to her backstory and just start flying in the middle of a fight because, you know, Chalkby would notice. I wouldn't be able to, like... If I was like, oh, no, she had the wings the entire time, Biddy. Chalkby said it was okay. Like, I know for a fact you would be like, hey Chalkby, did you say Margaret could have wings? And Chalkby would be like, what? No. Like, it's such a bad lie that... Where would they... I really want to know what was going on in their head. Like, what made them think that it would go, like, any direction that is beneficial to them.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Also, main character syndrome is not a good thing. Like, as a DM, you should definitely make sure to give your players, like each of your players, time to shine. And players, if it's another player's moment, if it's their scene, do not interrupt. Like, please try not to interrupt it. Like, if you want to do something funny, wait until it's over, and then do a thing that's, like, preferably, like, involving another player after, you know, the scene is done and the person had their moments to shine. Like, I give each of y'all your moments to shine. Like, you have your bracelet. Corvus has her whole quest with the...
It's a bracer!
That's what I said.
You said bracelet.
Oh, I meant bracer. Yeah, you have your bracer, and...
He gets very defensive about it.
You have your bracer and, like, your rivalry with Mal? I'm not sure what your... what Levier considers Mal to be. But yeah, you have that. Corvus has her whole quest with, you know, aspiring to be a Grim Cardinal.
Do you know what Levier sees Mal as?
What?
An equal.
That's fair. That is actually very fair. You could ask Mal whether or not they see Levier as an equal.
Oh, absolutely they don't, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, it was even if
they probably see Levier at most as a useful tool.
Even if they said they saw Levier as an equal, would you believe them?
No.
That's fair. Anyway, and Sushi has, you know, the sword patron, the patron in the sword.
Yeah.
Varen, being the captain, had a decent amount of scenes, but I am very interested for the player's new character to have moments and stuff, because I am very excited for y'all to meet her properly.
Yeah, actually get an opportunity to like hold a conversation with her.
Yeah, figure out what her deal is, considering, yeah, no, she had the most subtle introduction.
Yeah.
You couldn't really get a good read on her personality, the kind of person she is, based on how she was introduced. Yeah, it's yeah, you need to give your players moments to shine, and as players, you need to respect the other people's moments. Like, don't try to underscore someone else's moment by inserting yourself into the thick of it. So I think that'll conclude.
I certainly heard the entirety of that sentence.
Yeah, so I think that'll conclude this episode of Posscast.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure you drink your water, get all the cups out of your bedroom, and all that shit.
I just have the one cup.
Yeah. I don't even use cups, I use bottles, but I have a trash can in my room, which I take out each week.
I don't have a trash bag, but I do have a grocery bag that I have hanging from my Mike's scissor arm.
Oh, I thought you were going to say your doorknob, which would also...
No.
I think doorknob would be more valid, honestly.
No, but it does hang from a knob.
That's fair.
The adjustment knob for how easy it is to move the mic back and forth.
It's still valid. A hanging grocery bag is a valid waste receptacle.
Yeah.
Anywho, check out some of the other stuff. Biddy, what did you play yesterday?
Yesterday?
Yes.
Boy, oh boy, well, wouldn't you know it? It's the finale of Metroid Prime Remastered.
Indeed it is. And tune in next week for Metroid Dread being played by me, because Biddy doesn't want to suffer another Metroid game.
Well, there's also that, and it's saving you $60.
Yes, and also, like...
$60 of Metroid game that you've already spent $60 of Metroid game on me this year.
Yes, and also the time it would take to actually beat it, since... I mean, it's not a hard game, but if you forget what you are doing, it's easy to, you know, forget what you were doing.
Yeah. There's that, and there's also the fact that not once in my life have I beaten the 2D Metroid.
That's fair. Anywho, also on the channel, there's Cult of the Lamb being played by my boyfriend Scraps. And there's Tabletop Thursdays. We recently played Hues and Cues.
Yeah.
That's a game where you have to describe a color without saying what the color is. It turns out food is the best way to describe a color.
There's also the fact that we were all probably
really
either hungry or at the time eating food.
Yes, we all did have food on the mind. It got to the point where I was specifically trying to not do food references, and that was some of the hardest stuff ever.
Yeah.
Anywho, go check out some of the D&D campaigns we mentioned. Chalkfee is running Curse of Strahd, and I am running a homebrew called World of Tapir, which is the one I referenced earlier. So yeah, comment challenge of the day. What are some of your favorite homebrew monsters?
Ooh.
I've been listening to a lot of Pointy Hat lately, and I really like their homebrewed variant of a beholder, which is what happens when a beholder starts to see flaws in themselves. Because, you know, beholders think that they, the individual, are the most perfect being in the universe, and everything else is below them specifically.
Well, everything else they've created to entertain themselves with.
No, everything.
Yeah.
And they can also warp reality to reflect their mood and stuff. So, if a beholder has doubts on whether or not they are the pinnacle of perfection, that leads to very interesting reality warping stuff that
Reality gets a little fucky.
yeah, and they start to like change themselves and the world around them to what they would consider to be perfection. But perfection is unobtainable, so they just keep going further and further, getting more and more alien, and it's really cool. I think the pointy hats beholder variant was called an onlooker. I think I'd have to double check though. Anyway, what about you? What are some of your favorite homebrew monsters?
I don't know. I don't really look at homebrew stuff all that much.
You haven't looked at home. You haven't been on Danned Wiki since the Cuisiner.
Yeah, no, I don't try to spend any time on that website.
I don't either. But
Who's the YouTuber whose mascot's a little gazer?
oh shit. I don't remember, but they're in that D&D animation like review stuff. They're the same like
Yeah.
wheelhouse as like Puffin Forest and Z Bradshaw, Pointy Hat, Dingo. Like
Yeah, Dingo Doodles.
Yeah, they're in the same wheelhouse as all them. Man, if I could animate our D&D stories, it would be
I'm looking
over.
It up. Maybe I should take gazer out of it.
Let's see.
Well, a quick scroll hasn't told me, so probably end the recording. I believe that may be all that there is to say.
Yep.
So with that out of the way.
Yeah, with that out of the way, there's nothing else to say, but good night, everybody.
Goodbye.